Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time zone you're in, but wherever you are, hi from me to you. Thank you so much for joining today. It's going to be a really, really fun time. If you haven't already, let us know where you're coming from and what you are doing today, what you're drinking, what you're having, where you are, all the things. Super excited. And I'm really excited for today's guest because if you haven't sensed, I'm definitely gearing up for 2021. 2020 can lose it as far as I'm concerned. So on to 2021. And I feel like I've been thinking about authenticity. I've been thinking about goals. And so it's only natural that then I start talking about leadership and how do I want to lead in 2021? And how do I lead those around me and my team and others? And just, how do we start doing that? And so I knew I wanted to start thinking about that. And then obviously, I could look to no one else but Tianna, who you are going to meet today. And I'm really excited because she is a team dynamics consultant. She coaches leaders on leadership. So if you can figure that one out, coaches leaders on leadership and just kind of is a hiring expert guru, helps you get the right people around you, helps get the right mojo working. So I'm really excited. If you could please help me welcome Tianna to coffee.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you here and to learn so much from you. I've obviously been looking forward to this all week because I feel like leadership is it's a thing like that we all have to do, whether we're good at it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I heard you make a comment about 2020. And look, totally transparent. I got back from the clinic today. Husband is a first responder, is officially COVID positive. So even for me, emergency meeting with the team this morning, whole shebang. Leadership in 2020 is just different. He will be fine. I'm like the best wife nurse ever, so he's very lucky to have me. But literally, the game of leadership this year is just on a whole nother level.
Oh my, well, one, holy moly, my thoughts are with you. Everybody's thoughts are with you. Whoa. Two, look at how calm, cool, and composed you are. I can run around with a head cut off. Like
There have been deep breaths. There have been a lot of deep breaths and some jamming out to get the vibes off me this morning, but we're good now.
But I mean, this is what you do. Like you lead through storms. Like this is you. You're
This is
living
leadership. Yep.
You're living your leadership.
Yep. Whew.
Holy moly. Okay, wait. How did you even decide like, okay, leadership is what I want to focus on? Like this is my lane. This is my jam.
Excellent question. So people who don't know me, Tianna Tai, I have always been a huge psychology nerd, actually. So for the longest, I thought I was going to be a therapist to the extent where I was interning in a holistic therapy office, whole shebang. And then midway through that journey, I was like, I don't really want to be a therapist in my early 20s. So I quickly pivoted, was like, let's find something else psychology related. And I stumbled upon industrial organizational psychology, which is one of those like, it's a crazy term and everybody's like, well, what is that, Tianna? Basically, I study literally human behavior in the workplace. So in the process of just digging into what makes us tick, what makes us do the things we do, what makes us behave, particularly in work, different than we do in our professional lives, leadership was just something that came so naturally. Like I really fell into it because we know this as business owners, but also as people who have worked for other people's businesses, the tone is set at the top. So for any organization, if the leader is not just, we're all human, don't get me wrong. So even my meeting this morning, it was like, okay, y'all, take a deep breath. But as leaders, if we don't set the tone at the top, the organization suffers. So it just, to me, it was the best thing to dive into. And I was completely enthralled and obsessed literally from day one of my graduate program.
I mean, I didn't even know that leadership was an area you could focus on, which just goes to show my probably lack of knowledge about I thought psychologists that was like, we're unpacking, like it all started when I was 5. Like, I don't know. I didn't even know leadership was like a focus. That's so cool.
It's very cool. And one of the funniest things, like I remember, even as I first started saying, yeah, I'm an IO psychologist, this is what I do. People are like, so do you do therapy at work? Like, is that what this is? I'm like, not quite, guys.
Although sometimes I feel like if you would talk to me on a bad day, it would feel like therapy. I'd be like, and then one of the team members, like it would feel a little therapy session. I love what you said, that it starts at the top. And I'm so curious if you guys, drop it in here. But I have had a terrible boss before. And it makes a huge difference because the company can be great. Like ping pong tables and snacks and culture, and you have a great paycheck and a 401k and like all the fluffy things. But if your boss is freaking terrible, it's terrible. Like you hate going into work. It ruins it. It can ruin everything.
Absolutely. Like the best quote, and I don't know who said it because at this point everybody says it, but people typically don't leave their job, they leave their boss. So especially if you've got someone in a role that like they wanted in the first place, they're not necessarily always leaving because the role is inherently terrible. 9 times out of 10, it's relational. It just is.
No, it really does make a difference. And I also feel like sometimes, at least for me, it felt like I wasn't a match for the team either. Like I've gotten in situations where I get there and I was like, oh, I've made a mistake. like this was bad. Like I shouldn't have accepted that job offer. And I'm curious, like, how do you talk to people maybe when they're interviewing, or maybe from the other side when people are hiring? How do you make sure it's a jelly fit?
That's a good culture question. So to me, everything really does when it comes to hiring and putting in those correct team dynamics and really handling all of that stuff. It comes to knowing first and foremost who you are as a leader, right? If we're talking to small business owners, entrepreneurs, it does start with you, because it's different than being in, a Fortune 500 organization where there's hundreds and thousands upon people, versus if we're a small core team of 10, 15 even. Really, that organizational culture is like the heartbeat of who you are as a leader. So that's step number 1, is understanding who you are, what you bring to the table, how you lead. Because the thing is, if we can't communicate that from the get-go, as we're hiring, as we're interviewing, if we can't really paint the picture of who we are as leaders, that's honestly like an ultimate recipe for disaster. And then even beyond that, understanding who we are as leaders and taking it a step further, if you already have some team members, what is the dynamic there? What would it be like to bring another personality into the mix? Like, again, there are some very, I teach tactical, technical stuff, of course, but as a psychologist, there's some psychology involved, y'all. Like, we know what it's like, just like you said, Kim, you know what it's like to join a team and be like, oh, what have I done? Like, I'm not ever going to want to go get dinner with these people. No.
And not only that, like, I'll admit it. I'll actually be the first to admit I have made some bad hires where I, as a novice in hiring people and maybe not so experienced with it, I've made bad hires. And I know it's a bad hire, like within the first couple of weeks. And I'm curious of your thoughts, because I've talked to some other founders and some other, my friends who are mostly in their like late 20s to early 40s, like that's kind of the range. So people are either entrepreneurial or they're kind of just getting into management positions within like the corporate structure. So they are kind of starting to build their own teams. So they're getting to be in this hiring position. And I've talked to a couple of people and their attitude is, well, that's just the way it is. Like bad hires are going to happen and you just kind of have to accept it. And I'm curious, like, have you seen that? What's your take on that?
I give a deep sigh. Yes, as with anything, mistakes will be made. We'll make a bad hire, right? But if this is a pattern that is repeating over and over again, it's not the fault of the people that you're hiring. You need to take 10 steps back and look at your system, look at your process. How am I interviewing people? Where am I, like literally from the beginning? What does this job description look like? Am I communicating this correctly? Where did I post it? Did I post it in a really good pool of talent? How am I screening these? You know what I mean? I could go on and on. But if it's a pattern, I don't want to just rest on the fact that, yeah, this happens, right? We got to take 10 steps back and look at it from a systems perspective as well.
And how do you, I mean, if someone's okay, let's say they've made one bad hire or have done it multiple times, or maybe just want to avoid it. Like they just don't want to do it altogether. What's like one tip or one sort of reflection that they can go back? Is it starting with the job description? Is it really kind of going all the way back from point A?
In my opinion, I boil it down to communication is really like my point A. And so in communication, I do include the job description, what you say when you get on the phone with people, all of those little elements. So once again, that's being very steeped in understanding who am I, who is my company, what do we stand for, how do we do the work that we do? You know what I mean? And if you can really just like, if we got on right now and I was like, all right, Kim, break it down for me. What's your mission and vision? Do you guys have core values? Like, give me the spiel. And if you could break that down for me, chances are you're going to be set up for a lot more success when it comes to hiring, because we have to be able to communicate those things in a way that if it's not a good match for somebody, they can self-select out. I always think about, I'm in the South, right? I live in Atlanta. So I always think about Chick-fil-A and how everybody knows when you go to Chick-fil-A, it's my pleasure. It's not your welcome, God forbid. It is my pleasure when we serve the Lord's chicken, right? And I always think about the fact that if somebody was just like, I don't want to be walking around here saying my pleasure to everybody, they're never going to apply for Chick-fil-A because it is an expectation. And they have made it so clear to where their customers even know to expect it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's keeping that energy. And if we can keep that energy and really be the gatekeepers of our business, that sets us up for a lot better success.
Well, and I feel like you hit the nail on the head also when it comes to consistency. Like
Mhm.
as you start to talk about your culture, as you start to talk about your team, and for someone like me who's kind of looking at 2021 and setting goals, by the way, this is becoming a therapy session. Anyone else ask questions? Because if not, I'm just going to be like, Tianna, let me tell you about me. Okay, for somebody like me or others who may be a little too shy, we'll pretend, who are setting 2021 goals of, creating a good team or being part of a good team, should we set our own personal kind of goals when it comes to that and then look for a match from a company standpoint?
Excellent question. Okay. One of my favorite things to do when it comes to, we're kind of taking a dual perspective here, right? So when it comes to thinking about the team you want to join or the team you want to build in 2021, I always love to start from a big vision perspective. And that can sound super fluffy, I know, but like we'll break it down. So I literally do, and people will tell you to do this for all types of things, right? But I do encourage people to write down a vision. Just what do we want things to look like? Where are we trying to grow in 2021? Whether it's, again, from your company's perspective or from your individual perspective. And then I like for people to really start to get super tactical and nitty gritty, because for a lot of us, our goals are relatively similar at the macro level. We're like, I want to be fulfilled in my work. I want to be surrounded by people who support me. Like, like most of us are not just like, I just want to be by myself and I hate everybody. Like we don't set goals like that 9 times out of 10. If you do, that's
Right.
cool too. I get it. But a lot of times our macro goals look really similar. So that's why I like to encourage people to get super tactical and start, because the devil is in the details. So if you say to yourself, I really want to skip, my business hit multiple 6 figures, we're rocking it, and I really want to scale to 7 figures. I want to be able to offer this service, and this service. Right now, I want you to think about, does your infrastructure support that, right? So does the team that you currently have actually support what the vision for 2021 or even up to like 2025? And if it doesn't, that's where we get really detail oriented and say, okay, if I truly want this vision to come to pass, who are the people that I need to be on my team? Who do I need to surround myself with? And if you're an individual, maybe you're not thinking, who do I need to be on my team, right? Because you're thinking about joining a team. But maybe you're thinking, who do I need to be my mentor? Who do I need to get in contact with that can connect me with these companies, that can connect me with the owners of these teams that I would love to join? But again, it's taking that big picture, but then actually asking yourself those detailed questions about it. And that's where your path and my path are going to just like split apart, because in action, our goals, our paths are going to take a different route, and that's cool. We just have to have those details sorted out to know where to go.
I love this question that Abby posed because it's something that I've thought about as well. If you have somebody that you're fighting for, you're like, this person needs to join the team, but either management above you or maybe it's another team member who's on your team is like, well, I like the other candidate more than this person. How do you deal with that, or how do you navigate that?
People battle it out when it comes to these candidates. They really do. So, okay, I'm going to approach it from two perspectives. First perspective is if you have any say so in the actual process of the interviewing and talking to the candidates and whatnot, the biggest protection you can put in place is actually having metrics. So this choosing a candidate shouldn't just be like, yeah, I really vibe with them. They're gonna join my
I'm
team.
totally guilty of that, by the way. So
we've all been there. Don't get me wrong. I've done 99% of the things that I teach against. So I'm talking to you through experience. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times it's like, okay, if you really vibe, I always say interviewing is not supposed to be like a coffee date, guys. It's supposed to be digging really deep and having a set of criteria that you're trying to see if someone matches up to, right? So the first rule of the road is to actually have some metrics in place. So experience wise, it's not to say that if they don't hit this, they're just completely crossed off the list. But if you have a scale where you're like mildly impressive, extremely impressive, not impressive at all, or just like not applicable, and you're asking different questions and you can kind of tick the box that way, that's one of the ways a lot of my clients, because they're like number averse, they're like, Tianna, I don't want the numbers. I'm like, all right, let's talk about it versus impressiveness. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that takes some of the pressure out of it. But when you go and you're comparing candidates, it becomes less of a, well, I just really think they should get it. Then you actually have some data where you're like, no, let's have a conversation because in this area, and this area, she was rocking it. I don't know what you saw, but like, we need to have a conversation. And you actually have some influence to back you up with it. You know what I'm saying?
100%. And I imagine that's very sort of granular, in-depth work that you do with your clients. And what's the biggest pushback that you feel like you maybe has typically get from your clients?
Yeah. Time. Biggest pushback. And one of my previous bosses, I laugh at this, but she always used to tell her clients, you can pay me $10,000 now, or you can pay me $1 million later. And the reason I say that is because sometimes it's like, I don't have the time. I just want to jump on the phone. I don't want to be like checking boxes or anything like that. And I want to make the decision. But what you run the risk of is if you don't look, I always wear a necklace that says be intentional. If you're not intentional about the process and you don't put in your due diligence and put in the time, what happens is you're going to invest all this time moving real quick, hire somebody, train them, onboard them, introduce them to your team. Like the amount of resources that get dedicated to this is insane. And then 30 days later, you're going to fire them and start all over again.
I mean, I jokingly tell people, listen, it's really easy to get married. It's very hard to get divorced. It's way easier to hire someone than it is to fire and get rid of them for all the reasons you just said. So yeah, I mean, is that sort of the biggest mistake that you see? Maybe they're not your clients, but just kind of when you look at the general founder landscape, is that the biggest mistake that you see people making, or are there others?
There are definitely others, but that one comes up a lot. And I was just peeking at the comments and I love what Jeffrey said, because that is 110%. What anybody that works with me and gets like our hiring, we do the dream hire method and they get our hiring system embedded in their organization. They custom create a standard set of questions. They ask every candidate the exact set of questions. They have a scorecard for each candidate. It sounds literally, guys, these things sound super nuanced and complicated. I get it. I don't say any of this to overwhelm, but to paint the picture, the majority of my clients can open up a job and within the next week, they've made their decision. So it's not to say that this has to be like, it's going to take 3 months to do all of this. It's just if you actually have the things in place before you start, then you have a system and you can actually execute on it intentionally, but also quickly without as much of a headache.
Well, and I feel like, I feel like the phrase I love it, by the way. Better than your last boss. Like this, if you want to do a better job than your last boss, than whoever, it's like you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
You know, I could have six-pack abs. I don't want to put in the work.
Me
But I
neither.
know I could have them, but I don't want to put in the work. So, I mean, how did you come up with that phrase, by the way? Because I read that and I was like, done.
I'm not going to lie. When I came up with it, I was like, ah, like light bulb moment.
I mean, girl, chef's kiss. Like that was just
Honestly, via experience. I mean, we've all had a boss where it's just like, goodness, get me the heck up out of here. So when I entered entrepreneurship, I was just like, I don't want to be like that. And I saw in the comments earlier, someone said, the only good thing about a bad boss is that they teach you what not to do. And that is one of the best things. I also heard someone once describe leadership as like a charcuterie board. And she was like, every leader I've ever experienced, I just treat it like a charcuterie board. And I pick out the little things. I'm just like, I like this. I like that. I like that. Okay, bringing that into my arsenal. And that's what's shaped her into the leader she is today. And I find both of those to be super true.
No, 100%. And I think Todd just asked such a good point, like piggybacking off Jeff's point of asking the same questions and kind of having a system. How do you determine the culture fit if it's not a vibe, or I mean, it has to be a little vibe, right?
It is. So look, I'm a woman. I do believe in intuition. Don't get me wrong. First, I'm going to talk about the objective part, right? If you're into Enneagram, anybody listening, I'm a 5, super into.
Jen is an Enneagram coach. She's in.
Ooh. Oh yeah, girl, I'm a 5. So analyze me if you will. I feel like I very much embody my 5-ness 9 times out of 10. But to answer the question, in regards to culture fit, one of my favorite ways from like that more objective perspective is to, one, as a leader, once again, knowing your fundamentals, mission, vision, core values. So core values is my really big one when it comes to interviewing. 9 times out of 10, I always encourage people to custom create a set. No, it doesn't have to be 20 questions. You know, I'm talking like 3 to 5 tops. Questions that are directly tied to your core values, right? So an example that I can use, I'll use resourcefulness, right? That's one of my team's core values. So a question I may ask regarding that is, tell me about, it'll be situational, right? So tell me about a time, or tell me what you would do if, there's a storm, your Wi-Fi goes out, that we're in the middle of a launch and we've got client questions and this is totally your responsibility. Paint the picture for me of what you think the best course of action is. And I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to listen. I'm not going to feed them the answer. I'm not going to give them clues as to what I want to hear. But in their answer, I better hear behaviors that tie directly back to my core value of resourcefulness. And if I do, tick, they're that much closer to being a good culture fit for Team Ty.
I agree with you. I feel like the situational, I forget what book, because I read a bunch of these like leadership and self-helpy type books. So I forget which one it was, but it was talking about how to structure questions in a situational context. So exactly what you said, the internet goes out or whatever. And I love that. I love questions like that. I love seeing where people's minds go. And of course, you can't necessarily put them in those situations like Sim City or something. I wish you could, maybe. But I do.
Some people do. It's a very expensive tactic, by the way. Like the actual like putting them into the situation. There are different job clinics, and I know, especially in like Fortune 500 mega corporations, they will send executives into one of those scenarios and like make them do all the things. And it's a lot of money. But, if you're in corporate, that's a strategy. Lots of IOs do that stuff.
Well, I'm curious, like with all these clients that you deal with, and obviously you have a lot going on, do you yourself have an assistant or a team, or like, are there elves behind like making the magic happen?
Little elves. Yes. So right now I actually have a very, very lean team, which a lot of people find surprising. Look, again, I'm a 5. So it's funny, like one of my biggest hesitations, and I'm working against it, Jen. I'm not just like resting on my 5-ness. I'm making moves to improve myself, but we do have like this natural hesitation to having too many people like reliant on us, and what that means for how much energy we have to expend and like put into people, and when people get sick and the chaos just of life, right? So anyways, I digress, but I do keep my team relatively lean. So I've got a social media manager, we've got graphic design. These are contractors, obviously, but we've got graphic designer, photographer, videographer, who we consistently work with, you know what I mean? So anytime there's a launch or a project, that's the core team there. Besides that, we've got a couple of interns, and they are my whole heart. So our interns, it's not a general internship. I don't like those just because my own experience with internships, I like it to be super specific to develop their own skill sets. So my interns are industrial organizational psychology students. So they want the exposure to see what it's like to be an IO running their own business. And in return, they do a lot of research for Team Ty because, again, we're objective. So we do a ton of research and make sure we can apply that back to entrepreneurship.
Well, I will ask you, but I'll also ask this question to everybody else. But, obviously you are a leader. So what is your biggest leadership challenge or something that you're kind of thinking, wow, I gotta really tackle this?
Ooh. I will say probably I'll tie it back to what I just kind of touched on a little bit. Also, because if I think about my own organization's 5-10-year vision, the one thing that I know I'm going to be fighting against in myself a bit is that natural hesitation to having too many people, because there's a fear, once again, that they're going to like suck all of the time and energy out of me. And so one, I have my own coaches who like help me process those things. First of all, look, coaches need coaches. We all know this, right? So I have my own resources that I have to tap into to really help me. But also, I think that goes really well in line with the fact that right now my team is super lean, because as I build on that skill set, I'm going to grow intentionally. I'm definitely not the type of leader where I can like blink tomorrow and hire 50 people and survive it. I know leaders who can and who have done that and who have scaled super quickly and thrive. But man, Jen, I'm sure you could chime in on this one. If I do that, I'm probably going to crash and burn. So honestly, again, that goes back to knowing yourself and knowing who you are as a leader, because I can't do the things that you can do. You can't do the things that I can do. Like, we all have to take our own path and move at our own pace, or we're asking for trouble.
Of course. You'll just run yourself into the ground. It'll be a disaster. What do you think in all of your years of experience and different clients you've worked with and in your own team, what's the most impactful or sort of memorable situation where you feel like you really helped, these employees or this group?
Ooh, intriguing question. So recently, because my background is also, right now, I do primarily serve entrepreneurs, founders, like that startup culture, right? But I do have a background in Fortune 500 pharmaceutical healthcare consulting. That's where I kind of got my start. Very different vibe, by the way. But in that role, in that capacity, we worked with a team and we called it a team jumpstart within that organization. And we worked with a team where the trust within that team was so disintegrated that when we began, we had to conduct separate interviews and really get all of that data from them, first of all, before we could even bring them together. Because had we just brought them together from the get-go, they wouldn't have spoken, because they didn't trust their leaders. They didn't trust us as the external consultants, you know what I mean? And it was just this very toxic and kind of uncomfortable energy to be in. And I felt bad for these people. I'm like, geez, you got to show up to work every day and like sit in this, you know what I mean? And we had, I believe it was over the course of 2 months, we had about 8 sessions where just session by session, we had to tick away and open up these really hard, uncomfortable conversations and start to think. We thought about it in terms of, we're going to address the past, but we're going to be like, from now on, this is what we're going to do. So we're going to address the past, but we're not just going to sit and lay in it, because that feels terrible. But we are going to be super upfront about it and then spend the next couple hours talking about from now on. And It was a super slow process, to be honest. But by the end of it, and I actually was on a call with them just a few weeks ago, and they were just like, yeah, we can talk now. We trust each other. And we're humans, right? All of this is super theoretical 9 times out of 10 when people talk about it. But we've got to remember what it's like to actually sit in those seats and be in that room. So the fact that now they can have conversations without just like hanging up on each other and whatnot is a really big deal for them. So that was one of my favorite experiences, because when we stepped into it, it was honestly so toxic. As a team, we were like, "Whew, how are we gonna pull this one off?"
Well, I kind of feel like that is to me sort of the definition of you and what you do. I guess I sort of think of it like an HGTV show. Like you start with a founder's messy house and it's looking real ragged and real gross. And you like Joanna Gaines it. And then by the end, it's, this beautiful, well-functioning house or group.
Flip my team. I'm so obsessed now. I need to like think about how to turn this into another little analogy.
Right? Like I kind of feel like it should be a thing. 100%.
That's definitely going to be a thing after this. I'm obsessed.
Okay, I love this point Jeff brought up, because I know everyone like is not talking about it, but they're kind of COVID. I mean, it's like Voldemort. It's like I said it. Yeah. We're saying it. But it's true. Like we're all virtual. We're all remote. That definitely plays a factor in hiring for a team. What are you seeing? You're kind of boots on the ground as founders are navigating, or you have been boots on the ground all year as your clients have been navigating through this. Like, what are you seeing?
First of all, I'm super, super lucky. 1, millennial through and through. 2, I actually specialized in virtual teams and leadership. So I'm your girl to talk to about this, y'all. So 1, first of all, obviously the majority of business owners right now have experienced some sort of shift where people who were traditionally extremely brick and mortar, used to hiring people in-house, used to being able to train them in person. Some people no longer have that option. So yeah, it's definitely happening now. And I want to speak particularly to the people who are used to being able to do this entire process, start to finish, with someone sitting directly across from them, right? One of the main challenges is, honestly, I'm going back to your phrase earlier, Kim, when you were talking about the vibe and like catching the vibe. That's a super big challenge if you go from being able to communicate with someone in person to all of a sudden, like you're on a phone, you're sending emails, all of those things, right? So my number one piece of advice, it's going to sound so simplistic, but honestly, like we don't have holograms, y'all. So there's only so much we can do. You know what I'm saying? But when in doubt, especially if this whole virtual world is not necessarily your thing, what we're doing right now, video communication is the best possible thing you can do. If you are interviewing, do it via Zoom. If you are onboarding, do it via whatever video platform you have. But 9 times out of 10, I promise you, look, we don't, and also in 2020, pretense is kind of gone. Y'all are real lucky I'm wearing lip gloss today, okay? 9 times out of 10, if I'm on the phone interviewing people or with my team or whatever, I'm in sweatpants. Nobody cares. It's 2020. We've all been through the ringer. So get on the video. It's worth it.
No, it's totally worth it. And I'm glad, by the way, everyone has bought on to Flip My Team.
Flip my team.
Really excited. 2021 coming to an HGTV show near you. It's going to be Tianna Flip My Team. It's going to be great.
I'm here for it.
And I feel like you're here for it because I actually was just telling my dad earlier when we were talking about this, and I showed him how your podcast is called Tide Pod, and he died. It was like the most clever, tongue-in-cheek, obsessed. Like, tell me about who came up with the name. Tell me about the podcast. I want to know everything.
I'm super lucky. Look, I've got my Team Ty. Wait, where's my camera? I've got my Team Ty mug here. So first of all, I'm just lucky. My last name is Ty. So I was set up really well. Thank you, husband, who is asleep in the next room. But honestly, it was funny because even when I came up with the name, I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, haha, it's cute. But I will say, I was like, should I actually do this, or is it going to get on my nerves eventually? But I did it and I've never regretted it.
Are you kidding me? I think it's the best podcast name ever.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I feel like it's such a great way for you, because listen, you're one amazing human. You can't serve thousands of people, right? Like there's a capacity issue, but your podcast can. Like, was that your initial thought of how can I help more people when my capacity is just limited?
Absolutely. Like the one-to-many situation is obviously the bee's knees. Look, I got a book in me. It hasn't come out yet. But you know what I mean? Like that, my online courses, those sorts of things, one-to-many for me is super, super important because again, these things that I'm talking about right now, when it comes to hiring and building your team, they're all super foundational things that every business owner needs. And every business owner needs a hiring system. Every business owner needs training on how to interview. And whether it's you doing it or you hire a manager, you still got to equip the manager with those skills. You know what I'm saying? So we all need this information. So when it came to me and I kind of entered into the entrepreneur space and I was talking to these founders and these startups, and I was just like, okay, there's a lot of people who talk about leadership on an aspirational level, which I do as well. I love it. But I felt like I was really missing any sort of free resources that got super tactical, that were like, okay, let's talk about how to write a job description. Let's talk about establishing core values. Let's talk about this. And let's talk about it in a way that, yeah, it's informed by research and it's informed by the best practices in the industry. But a photographer who started their business and got super successful because of their skills, but maybe they didn't go to business school, is still going to understand it. So really that was my goal in my heart in creating Typod. And no regrets. I've loved it ever since then. And my interns do amazing, amazing work conducting some of the research so that we can really bridge the practical things we're actually seeing business owners do with the latest data and research that exists right now.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought up your courses, because if you haven't visited Tianna's website, you should. But I wish we could get in a time machine and go back to like 2011 Kim and be like, here are some courses for you, 2011 Kim. Because I made all the mistakes. And that's why I'm sitting here like, I can attest, like, amen from the back pew. Like, yes, it does take so much work when you fire someone. Yes, it wastes more time. Like, I am so it's something I say all the time, and I'm like, I just want to copy somebody else's homework because I've made all the mistakes and it's more time consuming. And I feel like as a founder, my most valuable resource is time. It's actually not money. And I think a lot of founders think that it's money, that if I raised a Series A or if I just raise more money, it's like, no, time. Time is actually what you need. And so anything that can save me time or anything that kind of helps, I'm like, where do I sign up?
Sign me up.
100%.
Absolutely. And I find that the majority of people, so for example, Black Friday just passed, so we just came off this like big push for one of my courses, Dream Hire Bootcamp, right? And the majority of people that really build the hiring system and put those things in place are the people who are like, I don't want to recreate the wheel every time I need to do this. Like, I plan for my business to actually, stick around year after year after year, which means I'm going to hire more than a few times. So they're like, all right, give me the system. Let's put it in place. Help me train my OBM on how to do this. Cool. We're solid. We're copacetic. Let's keep it pushing now.
100%. And that's why I feel like I do subscribe to so many podcasts and newsletters, because I'm like, they already figured it out.
Yeah,
You already figured it out. I don't want to, you already did the work. What newsletters or podcasts are you obsessed with, or that you learn a lot from?
Very interesting question. So I am actually a really big book person. So I read more than anything. I used to be super, super into the whole podcasting world and listening to podcasts like 24/7. But as with anything, and like if you're a business owner, you know this, sometimes consuming too much content that's like adjacent to your content messes you up. You know what I'm saying? So these days I've actually been reading a ton. And I was like the nerd back in my, younger days who was like in book club, student council, like all those things, you know what I'm saying? So it feels really good to have like my Kindle in words on paper. But right now I'm really, really into this book. It's Self as Coach, Self as Leader. That is a really good one if you haven't checked that out. That's my current read.
Have you read 15 Traits of Conscious Leadership?
No.
I think I'm reading that right. That's a good one. But I read that earlier this year and I was like, this is awesome. But no, I'm always in the book recommendation business.
I'm like, adds it to list. Literally, my whole family knows. I still don't understand why they ask me what I want for Christmas. I'm like, dude, here is my Amazon wish list. It's all books. Like, please order all of them. Thank you.
I was going to say, do you read physical books or is it Kindle or is it both? Like Kindle and physical
My office is a little messy, so I'm not going to turn my computer around. But my bookshelf is full and my husband won't let me get more unless I give some away. Rude. So I am officially a Kindle convert because there's only so much space in my house.
It's a one in, one out method. It's like a nightclub for books. And your husband's the bouncer.
He is. He's like, man, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? He does the same thing when I buy clothes, though, to be fair. He's like, you need to chill.
He's a man after Marie Kondo's heart.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And he is the tidy one as well. I won't even pretend on that. He's definitely the tidy one in the relationship.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so I wrote down these like speed questions. So whatever, like the first thing that comes to your mind, just like blurt it out. Okay. What have you started using lately or doing lately that you are obsessed with? You're like, I love this. I'm telling everybody about it.
Ooh, meditation. That's probably the right answer.
Well, that's the right answer, but is that the actual answer? I always say that because I'm always like, I should meditate, but like,
as of right now, it is the honest answer. As of whether that will continue to be a great habit that I maintain, debatable. It's been about a month though. I really like that Simple Habit app. That's the one. I've been rocking with that one. They have a lot of really good free meditations and really good paid ones. So I like that they got both going on.
Yeah, I've heard of Headspace and I've heard of Calm, and the Deepak Chopra one, but Simple, I haven't heard of
Simple Habit. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, they're trying to make it a simple habit. It's a good name.
It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, again, if you could get in a time machine and go back to when you first started your business, what would you do differently?
I would talk to more people. And once again, goes back to kind of who I've been historically as a person. And because I'm so into the books and into the data and into the research, when I first started my business, I consulted that side of things more than I actually talked to my ideal clients. So it was quite a journey learning how to communicate to them, seeing as I didn't talk to them all that much until we were actually doing the work. So there you go.
Talk to people. What do you think? Okay, then if you could get in the time machine and go forward 1 year, so like this time, 2021, what do you think is going to be that we're going to see more of in the leadership space?
In the leadership space, I think we're going to see more of a blurred line between that professionalism, leadership persona kind of situation going on versus historically, people haven't brought so much of their personal life, their beliefs, their values and stuff into the workplace. And I feel like we're already seeing that kind of disintegrate to even where, think about it, like with your favorite companies and whatnot. At this point, the public is like, no, I need to know how you feel about this. And as a consumer, I'm going to make decisions based off of that. You know what I mean? And so even I think that that's going to continue to trickle in, even as small business owners, entrepreneurs, startups. We're seeing it a lot with these bigger companies being held to that high standard, but I think that's going to continue. And I think that's going to start to impact us on a deeper level than many people expect.
100%. I could not agree. I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, if you're not thinking about what your consumers are thinking about the world, you're going to be left behind. Because that's where the future is going.
The separation of things is not, it's not going to continue. I don't see it happening.
No. Okay. If you could get, like, what is something that you've given yourself? It could be a physical object, it could be time you've given yourself in the last year that was a really good idea.
You said it was a fast round. So this is going to be so funny to so many people. Guitar Hero. Swear to God. Guitar. Do you remember that game?
Yes.
Oh my God. So literally, I believe my last birthday. So this was in the last year, right? Yeah. So my last birthday, I asked for Guitar Hero. And that has been the greatest gift to myself because, again, as someone who's like, so I exist too much in here 9 times out of 10, and I have to do things physically. So like going on walks and stuff is cool, but like sometimes turning the volume up to like 50 and jamming out to Guitar Hero is the best possible thing for me to do in the middle of a work day.
I love that. I just imagine you as like, I don't know, Axl Rose or something, just like totally breaking it down.
I get into it.
Okay. I love it.
You didn't expect that.
I didn't. Okay. What's the next thing that you're really hoping to learn?
I would say, actually, this is something I've been super itching to like go and get certified in and whatnot. Have you heard of the 5 love languages? I'll start there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So did you know that there is a work counterpart called the 5 languages of workplace appreciation?
No. And I feel like I've taken every test and Enneagram test and Myers-Briggs and whatever.
There's a book. Go check it out. So I've read the book, obviously. I actually met one of the like founding partners in that whole project it was some months ago at a conference. But ever since reading the book and getting so steeped into it a few years ago and then meeting someone last year at the conference who was like deeply involved, I was like, getting certified, bringing this into our team session. So that's the one thing that is the highest on my list right now.
I mean, I have to like, how did I not know about this? Is this like secret? Is it just starting? Is it like in beta?
Honestly, it's been around for a long time and I always get so surprised, but essentially it's super similar to the 5 love languages. They've just taken it and applied it to the workplace context, but I love to utilize it when I think about like rewards and recognition. Because if you think about the love languages, someone likes gifts. Not everybody actually feels truly appreciated via gifts. So maybe the better thing to say congratulations to your team member is inviting them out for a coffee date, maybe quality, or 2020. So bear with me, y'all. But sometimes quality time is the way that someone truly feels appreciated, or an act of service or whatever. So that is my new thing that I really want to get into a little bit deeper.
I love that. Okay. And thank you, Jen, for linking that so that everybody can click on it. I will be clicking on it as soon as we're done.
It's good. It's really good.
Okay. This is my favorite part, which is I would like you to give us homework. So what is one thing that we should all try this week? It could be a TV show. It could be a book. It could be meditate. Like, what's one thing that if you could just make us all do it this week, that we would be better for it?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. If you can do one thing this week, I want you to give yourself some time and space and dig really deep into some element of your leadership persona that you've never really pressure tested. So again, for me, one of the things that I'm constantly pressure testing is my resistance to letting more people in, right? So the way I may, try to fix that or like do something is I may book a session with an Enneagram coach, Or I may go read a book or do a meditation or actually schedule something with my team and not resent them for doing another meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's keep it real. Let's keep it honest. We could be honest, guys. We're friends here. So I definitely encourage you to take some time and just think about one activity, one thing you can do that's going to challenge some area of your own leadership style that a little bit is a little bit of a weakness, but you're just like, this is who I am. Okay, let's not do that, guys. Let's challenge it. And I would say that's what I encourage y'all to do this week.
Okay, I love that. If anybody decides to do it, please tag Tianna and I so we can help keep everyone accountable to each other. If people want to keep learning from you, sucking your brain.
So on Instagram, I hang out there honestly way too much. So I'm at Tianna Tai on Instagram. My website is tiannatai.com. Tianna Tai on LinkedIn, Tianna Tai on Pinterest, literally everywhere. I'm always hanging out, always talking to people. Anything about hiring, teams, and transformational leadership, I'm down to chat about it.
You're the go-to.
I try to be.
You're the go-to. Girl, this was I feel so refreshed. I feel like I have a list of homework and obviously I have tests to take, clearly, and homework to do. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And again, we're sending all the positive thoughts to your husband. Please keep us posted.
Yes, absolutely. Thank y'all so much for having me. This was like a very pleasant distraction thing to feed my energy into today. So I really, really appreciate being able to talk to you guys. You guys are a fun group.
I think we're pretty dang fun.
You guys are fun.
And we hang out every Wednesday, which just maybe it's wind down Wednesday, maybe it's wacky Wednesday. I don't know. It's like pick your own version of Wednesday.
We'll be here.
You know? Well, I'm sending a big cheers from me to you. Thank you, lady. It was so wonderful to talk to you today.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.